The barrage of stories about Windsor and about the royal court are sort of unending. Today there's one slightly tangentially of the photographs, the images projected onto the wall of Windsor, the Tower of Windsor, when President Trump visited. And also there's the story of the princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who pulled out of attending the inaugural Pink Ball at the British Museum. During Trump's state visit to Britain last month, this image was beamed onto the walls of Windsor Castle. Not a royal emblem or a patriotic message, but a 9-minute projection linking the American president to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and the projection orchestrated by the British activist Collection, led by donkeys, showed Trump's mugshot alongside details of his past social links with Epstein. And it was time for maximum visibility the night before Trump's formal welcome by King Charles at the castle, and 4 men were arrested. Their alleged crimes: malicious communications, public nuisance. These are catch-all offences that British police sometimes deploy when faced with acts of creative dissent. But this week Thames Valley Police announced that all 4 have been released without charge. The investigation is over. The state, it seems, has quietly conceded defeat. So let's examine what happened. The group responsible, led by donkeys, has become a fixture of British protest culture. Their trademark is the public projection or billboard that punctures political hypocrisy. They've lampooned Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Vladimir Putin, and now Donald Trump. And what makes this act distinctive is its setting, Windsor Castle, the symbolic heart of royal continuity and national dignity. To project the mugshot of a sitting US president who was being honoured as a guest of the king onto those medieval walls was to invert the image of deference that the state visit depends on. This is not vandalism. The projection was temporary, non-invasive, and conducted from a private hotel room. It was a pointed exercise in visual speech, part art, part protest, part indictment of the political culture that continues to flatter Trump despite his record and his associates. Yet the police responded as though an attack on national security had occurred. The activists were arrested within hours, their equipment was seized, statements were taken, and crucially the arrests were made before any complaint from the royal household, and that detail matters. It suggests the authorities acted not to defend the crown, but to shield Donald Trump, a foreign leader, from embarrassment. And this is where the episode becomes more serious. The notion that British citizens, subjects of His Majesty, can be arrested for embarrassing a visiting president is profoundly troubling. It raises questions about free expression, political neutrality, and the creeping use of law enforcement as a means of diplomatic management. The charges of malicious communication make no sense in this context. The projection was public, not directed at an individual. Public nuisance fares no better, as there was no obstruction, no danger, merely an image on a wall. And by dropping the case, Thames Valley Police appeared to acknowledge that the arrests were a mistake, a heavy-handed overreaction, as led by donkeys put it. But the damage is done. The precedent has been set that satire, when aimed at the powerful, can trigger the machinery of criminal law, and the precedent has been set that that criminal law is pointless. The irony, of course, is that the projection succeeded beyond measure. It forced the question of Trump's long and unaccountable relationship with Jeffrey Epstein back into the public eye. It reminded the world that state visits are not moral endorsements but diplomatic theatre, and that sometimes the audience has a right to intervene. There's also a symbolic layer to this. Windsor Castle represents continuity, restraint, and order, and the projected images, Trump's mugshot, Epstein's face, represent moral corrosion and political excess. The clash between the two surfaces, the ancient stone and the flickering light, captures a deep cultural anxiety, the tension between the ceremonial dignity of institutions and the moral chaos of the age they must now host. Well, there we are. The outcome should hearten those who believe in peaceful protest. Britain, for all its bureaucratic blunders and police outreach, still has the capacity to correct itself. No one will be prosecuted for shining a light, literally, on hypocrisy. But it also leaves a lingering question. When satire becomes a police matter, what does that say about our tolerance for truth? Perhaps the image on the castle was not simply a prank, but a kind of mirror, a reflection of how fragile political respectability has become when tested by conscience. and by art.